Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to ULTV Study Abroad 101. I'm Shifali Srivastava, Marketing and Communication Manager at University Living. Students planning to study in the UK have almost certainly heard of National Indian Students and Alumni Union UK, NISAU, home of all Indian students and youth in UK. In this session, we'll discuss the support NISAU provides to international students studying in UK. We are joined today by Sanam Arora, founder and chairperson of NISAU. Hi, Sanam.
Hi, Shafali. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
All right, thank you. It's a
Great. Thank
glorious
you.
day here in London.
Thank you for joining us. Sanam is a regular contributor on education and UK India relations in the press and has spoken at various prestigious forums, including British Parliament, Westminster Forum, and the University of Oxford. By profession, Sanam is an investment management consultant and works with leading asset managers, providing the strategy in consulting and advisory. Welcome again, Sanam, and thank you so much for taking out time from your busy schedule.
No problem. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I'll not take a lot of your time. I'll start with the session immediately. What is NISAU and how does it help the students?
Sure. So NISAU, as you mentioned, the National Indian Students and Alumni Union UK, we are the home away from home for Indian students, really, or that's the aim with which we started NISAU 10 years ago now. So this year is our 10th anniversary, and we're very excited about it. And really, idea is very much when I, as a student, came from India to the UK, or hundreds of thousands came before me. There was, we have some universities, and say there's like 160 something universities and thousands of colleges in the UK, and some of them have small India societies where Indian students get together and do things for each other. But for the bulk part, we didn't really have somewhere that students could go to other than the university's infrastructure to when they wanted help, when they were feeling lonely, when they just wanted some advice, some guidance, maybe when they had issues with their university or anything like that. So really, it was 10 years ago now, and I was an undergrad student at the LSE, and I sort of thought at that point, I used to run the LSE's India Society myself, and I used to see that, across the road from me, there was King's College London, they had an India Society, and we were perhaps part of like the privileged 20-25 universities who had these India Societies. But that we were duplicating effort, and really our efforts were all about that university itself. There was nothing nationally looking after the welfare of Indian students. And, we bring billions of dollars into the British economy, billions of pounds, I should be saying. And I was just like, and there was a lot happening at that point as well, which was, not conducive to foreign student experiences in the UK. So for a lot of those reasons, we started NISAU, and really, home away from home is the vision we started with, and I'm glad that we're able to help with welfare and support, and anything that an Indian student or alumni when they're in the UK needs, we try our best to help with.
So I must say that the inspiration came from your own experience when you saw that problem in front of you.
Yeah, actually, two bits. One is, like I mentioned, I was heading up the India Society at the LSE, the London School of Economics, and I thought, actually, there are these little bodies across the UK, but no one is bringing them all together on one platform. So that was one of the two reasons I started NISAU. But the other one also was, your viewers may not know this, but it's important to have the background. About 10 years ago now, this is the time when, the political scenario was becoming very anti-immigrant. And of course, student immigration is part of immigration on the whole. Obviously, the events then were so major that they eventually led to Brexit in the UK exiting the European Union. And so there was a very, very, very significant anti-immigrant sentiment in parts of the UK, which was then translated, not necessarily towards Indians, but just generally. And I think it was a result of austerity after the great financial crisis. Anyways, yada, yada, yada. We are in this point where, because we were doing a lot of things at LSE's India Society, I started getting contacted by hundreds of students who were significantly negatively impacted as a result, who had nothing to do with me or the LSE or anything else. They just really needed help. And Shifali, I kid you not, I've had people reach out to me threatening suicide. I've had people, because they were in such dire circumstances as a result of inconsiderate or sort of ill thought through policy change. And back then we had some nearly 1,000 universities and colleges that were closed. They lost their sponsor status. Students were running haywire, and this was just the tip of the iceberg. Of course, the post-study work visa, which is now called the graduate immigration route, that got taken away. So long story cut short, a lot of bad stuff was happening. that impacted international students, and our Indian students were badly caught in it as well. And so really people started reaching out to me, and when I looked around, I was like, well, how comes we bring billions of pounds into the economy wherever we go, whether it's the UK or elsewhere, but there's nobody that unites Indian students and says that I'm going to stand up for their welfare, I'm going to make sure nothing bad happens to them, and I'm going to do what I can because these are my people. And neither are we getting human rights and nor are we getting consumer rights. It didn't make any sense. And so really, those were sort of the primary two reasons we started NISAU. And as time progressed, we also discovered that actually there is a very limited or a very narrow understanding of India in the UK. The understanding sometimes can still be around, the colonial past, or, India, the third world country, or stuff like that. And so we thought that, what, we are Indians, privileged Indians from India, who have the privilege, the ability to be able to stay, work, live in the UK. It is our responsibility to champion our country and tell the world what our country is really about. Because what? We're a $1 trillion economy as well. And no matter who wishes to deal with us, they really need to understand what we're about, how complicated things are, how easy things are. All of that makes sense. So really, NISAU does two things today. We ensure, to the best of our abilities, the welfare of every Indian student in the UK. We do not charge a penny for our services, not to anybody, not ever. It's an entirely volunteer-driven philanthropic effort on part of hundreds of students and alumni. So we help with welfare, ensuring welfare, and the second is we champion India in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, your answer actually made me feel that you gave me that feeling of home away from home for the students who are there, or people who are studying in UK or living in UK. Now, you mentioned policies. We have heard that you play a major role in many policies as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. So are there any kind of policies that you want to mention for international students with respect to these new COVID variants happening?
Yeah, so actually, it's interesting you mentioned policy, because although we are not officially part of any governmental body, we're not officially a part of any trade delegation, as you wouldn't be. We are an entirely independent, small, voluntary effort. We do punch above our weight. So we do, essentially take part in a lot of these policy making conversations. We do make a lot of noise, and we're very, our team is good in that we create the right sort of noise to the right audience, to the right stakeholders at the right time. And, one of the noises we made, for instance, was for 7 years, more than 7 years, to bring that post-study work visa back, because we said it was so beneficial, not just to India, not just to Indian students, not just to the UK, but to everybody involved. And it was really about shining a light on that benefit, mutual win-win situation. So today, where we stand right now, so of course the graduate immigration route, which is a post-study work visa, which means that every Indian student who now comes to the UK, depending on what you're studying, you get 2 or 3 years of stay back period in the UK. So everybody will get that now who's eligible. But there are still further things that can be done to enhance that offering for Indian students. For instance, one of the things that we're hearing a lot from Indian students now is about extending, whether the length of 2 years, which is for the bulk part for undergrad and master's students, is enough, or whether that should be increased in order to make it a slightly more competitive offer, say compared to Canada or some of the other countries. So that's something my team is looking at. From a COVID perspective, you asked the question around policy making. In fact, we did a lot during that time. So for instance, you may remember that for a period of time, India was on England's and the UK's red travel list, which meant that every student had to pay, or every traveller, including students, had to mandatorily pay nearly £2,000 for what was known as managed isolation in a hotel. And we just thought that was really not quite on, because how do you 2 lakh rupees or 1,750 pounds, which is almost 2 lakh rupees, is a significant amount, even as a percentage of people's total fees. So and how you expect students to be able to afford that mandatorily in order to just be able to carry on with their education? That quite didn't sit right with us, and hundreds of students did get in touch with us to raise that. So we did, through our strategic thinking, through our whatever the best of efforts we could put, we did raise that in numerous forums with numerous stakeholders in the media. And we were very lucky that some of our noise, I believe, did contribute to, for instance, Adar Poonawala, with working with NDTV. He gave a grant of about £1 million for students who did need help with that £2,000 mandatory, or at that time, £1,750 mandatory isolation fee. So that sort of impact is something we are able to generate. Similarly, getting India off the red list when it was scientifically reasonable to do so, we did make a lot of sort of noise around that from a policy making sense, and lo and behold, it did move off the red list. Another example was, you would remember this because it became a huge deal in India, that Covishield, which is essentially the AstraZeneca version of the vaccine, was not recognized for quite a while in the UK, which of course our Indian students were telling us that they had been taking that vaccine in particular in India because they thought that it's the same as the AstraZeneca vaccine, and so there will be no sort of compatibility issues when they did travel to the UK eventually. And that sadly wasn't the case. For quite a while, AstraZeneca's identical vaccine, for lack of a better word, Covishield, was not recognized in the UK as an authorized vaccine in the same way as the AstraZeneca one was. And again, which meant that our students were then considered unvaccinated and they had to follow all the unvaccinated rules despite being vaccinated. So that was another thing we did, raise a lot of sort of concerns about. A lot of efforts were put from our team to move move Covishield into the approved vaccines list, and that did happen. So what we are fortunate to have, actually, Shefali, is a government that listens in the UK for sure. So, or stakeholders who are very warm and listen to us. So it's not like we're banging our heads against a wall. It does, when we speak, and we speak in a reasonable way, in an appropriate way, and raise things in a scientific, methodological manner, it does work.
So the voice is being heard over there, and you guys are the voice of these Indian student and whatever the queries they have, correct?
We play a small part in helping that our students are always heard, that there is no body like ours, in the UK, at least to my knowledge. Pakistani students have reached out, sometimes publicly said it, for example, that they wish they had a body like ours for them. Nigerians have reached out to us. During the COVID crisis, we fed thousands of Indians in the UK with groceries, food, as well as in India as well. But it was a tough situation, particularly during the first and the second wave in the UK, for travelers, for tourists, for students. And at that time, there were so many Pakistanis, Nigerians, Bangladeshis that reached out to us, some Nepalese people. Obviously, we didn't discriminate because, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but, and Atiti Devo Bhava, and all those good things that our culture teaches us. Why would we discriminate? That would be the silliest thing to do. But to the best of our abilities, anybody, regardless of the color of their passport, that reached out to us, we helped out. And at that point, I remember vividly reading comments and hearing from students saying they wish they had, other nationalities saying they wish they had the equivalent of a NISAU for them. And over the years, some have reached out to us and we've said, we'd be happy to help you set that up. I haven't seen anything come through, but I do think that such an effort for different nationalities would only be helpful. But Shefali, it takes persistence, it takes commitment, it takes dedication, and it takes a certain spirit of community. And those things are, we're living in an interesting world. I think hopefully things will change after COVID and people will realize that humanity is really the only thing that matters at the end of the day. And so I think people will become more giving and will become more, philanthropic in their approach towards life. Like I always say to students, and my friends, my colleagues, and again, this is something I've inherited, I think, from my parents, but you don't need to be rich to volunteer, right? You don't need to be rich to help people out. You can be very middle class, you can be a student with no income, but you can still help people out, as so many people in our team do. So I think that philanthropic ethos, that ethos of giving back to the community, whether we're in the UK, whether we're in India, I hope that takes up further after COVID. But that's something certainly that we push very strongly in NISAU.
True. COVID has opened a lot of people. They have given a new perspective to humanity for sure. And I'm sure those students who must have reached out from other nationalities, someone over there might be trying to watch. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of effort after this, as it's a 10-year journey that you have achieved this much during that time. So it does make a lot of difference. And hats off to you that you worked as an investment banker and side by side you're taking this also forward. So yeah. So I have one question. It might sound silly to you, but I think it's really important. Now there are different study abroad destinations. What makes UK different? Why one should come to UK?
There is no such thing as a silly question, and this one definitely isn't a silly question. Um, Obviously, I'm biased. Yeah, I've spent so much time in the UK. This country has given me everything. It's given us, so many of us, everything. From the standpoint of an Indian student, though, who's deciding where to go abroad, of course, there's a lot of things that one needs to consider: the economics, the financial means, what your ultimate goal is, etc., etc. But what sets the UK apart, to my mind, really is, one thing that really sets us apart is Britain's sort of in the middle of everything. It may have something to do with the fact that Greenwich Median Time was set by the Brits. And so, but, from a time zone perspective and from a distance perspective, one of the big, I think, advantages that the UK has is that we're, bang in the middle of the world in some ways. So, during a working day, for example, we get to speak with the US, we get to speak with the East, with India, with China, etc. And you have, we're sort of in the middle of that. So and it's not that far. It's a 7.5 hour flight away, right? Whereas we go to Australia, no, like, offense to the Australians, it's in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, it's 15-hour flight away. Or Chicago, or wherever, if you go to the US, again, travel time is almost double, if or thereabouts. So definitely the proximity to India is one thing. I think the second thing that India and the UK very uniquely share is that history, the shared culture, the shared values. Of course, there is the baggage of the post-colonial era, but we're dropping that. I mean, as we speak, Shefali, our prime ministers are meeting in Delhi and then Gujarat. And it's a new era for the UK and India, and people who are coming here now and who will come here in the short term and in the years to come, they will find an entirely different British India dynamic. They will find, we are currently negotiating a free trade agreement, and the expectation is that will be achieved really fast, which means that the ties between our two countries are set to become so very close. And I do urge all of your viewers to Google a free trade agreement. But the ties between our countries, which have been so culturally strong and historically strong, are now set to become way stronger in contemporary terms, in terms of business, trade, investment, people to people ties, education, collaboration, democratic values. All of those sorts of good things are about to get a lot closely aligned. And so, yes, India may be negotiating another one with Australia and with Dubai and whatever, but I think that sort of power that the two countries have to set the global good force going forward, and the role that young Indians, students who have studied here, people who are working here, alumni can play in elevating that partnership going forward, is such a unique opportunity that anyone who's coming to the UK now will benefit from it. And so that sort of strategic ties between the two nations, the evolving nature of the relationship of that bilateral partnership, students may not think it impacts them, but actually it really does when you really sit down and think about it. So in the UK, we say we don't even say it, it's actually kind of true. Chicken tikka masala is our national dish in the UK. I kid you not. You go to any pub, that's the one dish. So two things you'll always find on the menu: fish and chips and chicken tikka masala, no matter where you go in the UK. Chicken tikka masala is pretty much officially the national dish here. Why I bring that up is not to just merely have a laugh about it, but to say that that's the level of, love for India, Indian food, Indian culture in the UK. It's becoming a lot more, no matter where you go, you'll find Indians there. No matter what county you're in, no matter what borough you're in, which part of the UK you're in, there will be Indian people around, either, first, second, third generation immigrants, or current students or otherwise. So it's sometimes I feel like there's really mini Indias here. And if you go to Southall, for example, when you get off at the station, you'll see Southall written in Punjabi. If you go to, kid you not, real story, true story. If you go to Wembley in London, I call it Gujarat, Leicester, entirely Gujarat. Like these places remind you of being physically in India. That's how much there is an integration in parts of the UK. Um, and also, again, maybe personal bias, but London is literally the most international city in the world. Like it's popularly said that, and I've felt it on many occasions, that if you spend half an hour in London, you'll probably meet more nationalities in that half an hour than you've met in an entire lifetime. So that feeling of global but local, and unlike the US and unlike Australia, it doesn't take hours to get from one city to another. You can drive to a beach, you can drive to, the coast, you can get onto a mountain. Like we've got the best of um architecture in the UK. We've got the best of landside in the UK. We've got so much countryside. The English countryside is super popular. We've got Scotland, absolute beauty, like the things you can do in Scotland, from a nature perspective and from a activities perspective. I mean, I can go on and on, Shivali, but the UK genuinely is the best place to be. It's small enough, but it's large. It's got the best of whatever's happening in the world in one place. And I I will conclude this question on this answer, and I strongly feel this, that the UK is a place where either there will be an opportunity and you need to come and take it, or there is an opportunity to create your own opportunity. And that is absolutely critical, and that's what I've been doing all my life, or certainly the last 10, 12 years that I can remember. But that's certainly what I feel.
Right, right. And you have, mentioned such interesting and beautiful facts about UK. And of course, whoever is gonna, the viewers gonna getting little inclined over there. But now there is one more
Yeah,
side
I've
of the
done my job then.
question. Now there is one more side of the question. Is
Mm.
there are multiple factors which one needs to consider when they are studying abroad? Right. When you were going to study abroad at that moment of time, you must have your own reasons to select UK. So, what are the factors that one should take in account before planning studying abroad?
Yeah. Shifali, I would urge all your viewers to think about study abroad not as a way to get out of the country, which is what a lot of people do. And I don't think that should be the way they think about it. You really want to think about, I'd encourage you to think about your end goal. And that end goal cannot be as short sighted as, oh, I just want to go to country X or country Y or country Z. That really cannot be the goal of your life or the goal of your education or the goal of your employment. You should take a step back and really think about, okay, who am I? Like, who really am I? What do I want to achieve in life? And once you've really ascertained, and you may not know all those answers, right? But you may have a rough idea, or you may know that eventually I'd like to be, I don't know, sad people like me might say I want to be in investments, but you may say I want to be in investments. You may say, oh, you know what, I really enjoy politics and I want to be in politics. Someone might say, actually, I want to become an actor, or I want to become an influencer, or whatever it is that people, or doctor or engineer, whatever you become. But think about what you want to become and why. And I think once you've got those two questions ironed out, you want to work backwards from, okay, based on my current circumstances and my target roadmap or my target state, how do I get there, and what is the best route for me to get there? The best route for you to get, then you might go, okay, there are 8 universities worldwide that do what I want for my end goal. Say I want to become a doctor, and my current circumstances are such that I have XYZ academics, and based on all of those factors as well as my financial background, these are the 10 universities in the world that I think I can get into, given everything in account. And then you have to shortlist and filter out by country, by speaking to people in those universities, what their experiences have been like. You can reach out to people like us and NISAU. We can help you get peer-to-peer guidance. And really then, so your financials, your academic background, but over and above all of that, what is it that you really want to achieve? Because being a global citizen is not just a buzzword. It really means that you're getting an opportunity. And as I mentioned, anyone who goes abroad is privileged, no matter what background they're coming from. You're getting an opportunity based on your privilege to be able to go and create something for yourself, to be able to go and achieve something. And so you've really got to take that seriously. And I hate, and this, I'm sorry to say, happens a lot, where students don't think strategically. It's about the tactical, it's about the immediate, just want to get out, just want to go to Canada, just want to go to London, here, there. And they're not thinking about why they're doing what they're doing. No matter how much money your parents have, it doesn't need to be wasted. You've got to really think about, what do I want to do and why, and then work backwards and create a plan for yourself from that. And don't waste that opportunity of your undergrad or your postgrad. Like, most people only do one each, right, in their life. And if you're like me, you'll do an undergrad inside that bus or Nyota. But jokes aside, you're only going to get that one opportunity. So you've got to make the most of it. And you cannot deal with it as just like a, oh, it's something I need to do just to get out. No, it's the most important experience of your life. You've got to think through it properly.
True. In fact, the 2 points that you mentioned, that you should know that what you want to achieve, what is a long-term goal, and what is the roadmap to it. I think these two basic questions not just answer your study abroad answers or questions, but also answer the real question of pursuing any dream or any career opportunity that you want to pursue.
Yeah.
Right, very well said. And of course, we should not, or any student who wants to aspire should not just focus on trends or my friend is going or just escaping out of the country and all that, because there is a bigger picture. The step might look smaller, but there's a bigger picture to it, and whatever you're going to do, it's going to impact a lot of people in your life journey. So
Exactly.
now, in the initial conversation, you mentioned that when you were over there, when NISAU was in the inception area, era, so you faced a lot of difficulties with respect to the policy changing, with respect to multiple things. How has this scenario changed? How has this whole study abroad journey for an international student has changed? Well, if I talk about over this the whole decade, I must say, what has changed? How has things become easy? What has become difficult?
Yeah, it's an entirely new era. Um, 10 years ago was the pre-Brexit era, where things were really heating up, in 2012, let's say 11, 12, that would eventually lead to something as significant in 2016 as Brexit happening. But now we're out of Brexit, and no matter what our position was, whether we were leavers or remainers, we are all Brexiteers now. And as Brexiteers now, the UK is global Britain. Previously we were part of the EU, and so a lot of the policy making and a lot of the engagement we had with the world was through that European Union lens and through being part of the EU. So post Brexit, what has changed, Fali, is that that entire lens has changed from where we were as EU, part of the European Union, and therefore having that view of the world. We are now global Britain, and that is the official sort of stance of the British government. And as global Britain, there is no boundary really for Britain in the world. And so the engagement has changed. And because the engagement has changed, policies are changing accordingly. So I mentioned earlier that my team, we ran a 7-year long campaign to bring the post-study work visa back for our Indian students. Most of the people in my team who actually campaigned for that visa, including myself, we didn't actually get that visa. So it's people who've been coming from last year, 1st July 2020, or that was the cutoff. Anyone sort of just after that has been eligible to get the visa. But that in itself is a big example of how the policy has changed. So previously it was come, study, go back. Now it is come, study, and find your way around the UK, find that job, and on the post-study work visa, one of the best things about it, which people don't really know or talk about, is you can do your own business. I mean, for a 20, 22, 24, whatever you are year old, especially, you've just graduated, the ability to have 2 years where you can either find a job or you can do your own business and then take it forward is just really unique and quite something special. So that entire way of looking at India and Indians and Indian students has changed. And this is back to my point also, the very boring point I was making about the whole free trade agreement and the enhanced strategic relationship between the two countries. Entirely new era, and Indian students we are going to ensure at NISAU that, as we've been doing for the last many years, we even step up our game even more, and that Indian students are at the center of international student policy making. So long as we are there, we'll do our best to make sure that that happens. And but that environment is a lot more positive now.
Yeah, like of course a lot of things have changed, and in fact intervention of internet is a lot now and people can google it, and like we are doing this session right now, and they can go and they can see, they can refer to your answers. Back in those times there was nothing like this, right?
Absolutely. I think the internet and the sort of permeation of that across India, especially since maybe we have Mr. Ambani to thank for the cheap internet. But the sort of digital India, and how much India is able to access the resources that are available at the touch of a button, at the flick of a finger kind of thing, is insane. And we actually found that during COVID, although every opportunity, every adversity has an opportunity as well. And actually, while we were dealing with the adversity of COVID, we also took the opportunity to do so many more things online. Shifali, we had hundreds of sessions, from games, online games, to online Netflix parties, to like sessions, that training sessions we used to give students, to make sure that they were, while there was these very long lockdowns and people were stranded in their small rooms, that they actually weren't going to go crazy sitting there and weren't going to feel lonely. So we did so many activities all via online platforms, around using apps. We did Zoom obviously became our best friend. The number of events we've had, conversations we've had with some of the most top most people in the sort of India UK sphere. I mean, just to quote a few, we during COVID we started a new series called the India series at King's College London, which is chaired by me and Dr. Gupta from King's College. We interviewed, and we had thousands of people join us, literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of people join us to view things like, one of our conversations was on the National Healthcare Digital Mission and healthcare and digitization in India, where we had Mrs. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw from Biocon. One of the sessions were around climate change, and we had Mr. Aditya Thackeray, who's obviously climate change minister for Maharashtra. Literally the next month, we had Mr. Manish Sisodia, who's the education minister of Delhi, to talk about the education revolution in Delhi. And this is just three of the God knows how many conversations we've done, but this is the India series I'm talking about. We launched another thing called the India Conference at the London School of Economics, again launched virtually. But we found that actually our impact, our conversation started reaching hundreds of thousands of people that we weren't previously able to reach out to, because we were in the UK, and how would our conversations reach India? But now it's like one world. It's literally Vasudev Kutumbakam, one world. There's no barrier. Like, you're sitting in India, I'm guessing, I'm in London, and we're having this conversation, and those conversations are reaching millions and millions of people. And I think that's the big advantage and acceleration that has happened as a result of COVID, notwithstanding, of course, all the horrible tragedies that have happened. But yeah, I think with students are smart, students are very digital, students know what they need. One piece of advice I'd say, just given how much information there is on the internet, um, and how many conflicting voices there are, and if you think about the nature of a lot of these social media websites in particular, which are algorithmic driven, people need to be careful that they don't fall for the noise. There's too much noise, too much happening. This digital era is too much noise. Like, I actually genuinely go for digital detoxes now, where I put my phone away for a day, day and a half, 2 days, don't check it. And that's the only way. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm surviving. But yeah, there's so much noise going on that students really want to cut through that noise. They need to realize that they need to cut through that noise, go to official sources of information, go to platforms like ours, go to platforms like University Living, which are credible sources of honest, authentic information, not algorithm driven and not financially motivated. But that's something students need to be very aware of.
True. The last one that you mentioned is actually very much important. There is a lot of content available. As I mentioned, internet has given open a lot of doors for all the students, but there is a lot of content available. Not all content is the right content. So right. Now you have mentioned that you addressed a lot of challenges during COVID. Of course, there were many students going through depression, loneliness, and others. But these are not just challenges available during COVID. Many students face these kind of challenges when they are in normal general journey of studying abroad. So how does NISAU help with these challenges, and what kind of challenges that you have seen, or what kind of challenges one faces when they're studying abroad?
Yeah, so I could speak on this question for a very long time. I mean, there's the challenges students face when they're choosing to study abroad. Of course, there is first the too much information, too much noise, but not some real proper information and proper guidance and on where you should go. That's like the first big student challenge, I've observed that students face. And there are hundreds of thousands of agents and counselors, millions of counselors when you take in, like, the single one man counselors or the Tom, Dicks, and Harrys that open their shops everywhere. I have been saying, and I've discussed this with Sushma Swaraji when she was our external affairs minister, with Smriti ji as HRD minister, and the number of stakeholders in this UK India spectrum. And I've actually submitted a detailed proposal back in 2016 to say regulate this sector. Agents and counselors need to be regulated. It's entirely unregulated in India, which means that every Tom, Dick, and Harry is giving some gyan, some advice. And I'm sorry to be so direct and blunt about this, but this is something that really pisses me off. Is you haven't stepped out of your road in, I don't know, some town, let me not name any, but some town in India, and you're telling me you're going to send me to Oxford and Cambridge and Harvard and Ivy League institutions. Like, really? Like, and no offense, I'm sure you have the ability to do so, but really? And students need to not engage with what is very obviously commission driven behavior. You can go to good agents, go to good counselors, and there's no dearth of approved agents. Check the university's website to see who are the approved agents, because that means that they would be following some due diligence, they would be following protocol, they'd be following good guidance, good behavior. So one big issue is this unregulated agent, unscrupulous bad behavior by these unscrupulous agents, I'd say. And so many students, over the years have been scammed, or there's been misrepresentations given to them. They've been bluntly lied to. They're told one thing when they get here, or any other country, they find something entirely different. Like in Canada recently, we had hundreds of students who, found that their colleges got randomly shut, and then all their money went down the drain, all their academics went down the drain, and the agents are like that, right? Like, I'm gonna wash my hands off of this kind of thing. Oh, I think that's what happened, but certainly I've seen that in many cases. So that, where do I go to find the right information, is critical. So go to either your university or platforms like ours. Come to NISAU, we'll help you. We won't recommend one university over the other, we won't recommend one agent over the other, but come and talk to us, and we can help you with some guidance. We can point you to the right people to speak with. So that's one big challenge, and I'm sorry to have taken so much time, but I do strongly feel about that one. Second is finding financial help. I think it's getting better now, particularly loans that are required, but I think still loans are relatively limited to which university you're going to. Is it an Ivy League university or a tier A university? So I know that things are getting better with financial loan availability, but I would still like to see significantly cheaper interest rates in India for students who are taking out loans to go abroad, and banks put education loans as a high risk asset. My request to banks has always been to move that rating down, or change the systems, because clearly big billionaires run away with a lot of bank money, yeah, but little student loans are not considered safe. So I think there's something seriously wrong with the banking structure, and non-banking financial corporations coming into the mix is certainly going to help out, but that interest rate needs to come down. Then the third point, I would say, big challenge can also be accommodation. You're sitting in India and you want to find accommodation thousands of miles away. That definitely is a bit of a challenge. And over the years, so many students would always raise that concern with us. And so that's one of the reasons we partnered with University Living. And we urge students to use platforms like University Living to address those sorts of accommodation related challenges, and make to be sure that what they're booking is a safe place, is a good place, and that there is someone there to look after the concerns or issues should any arise. So I think accommodation is often a challenge. I think opening bank accounts can be a challenge, because sometimes there is a catch-22 situation, which is that you need to get here to then get your address proof to be able to apply for a bank account. But that means that while you're here for that couple of weeks or months, you don't have a way to pay. You, of course, can have those Forex cards, but they're not always very cheap. So it's not particularly flexible. And in fact, we have partnered with ICICI Bank for that. And they have a dedicated student account that you can open before you've even left India. So that UK debit card arrives in at your house in India before you've left. So when you come here, you've actually got everything set up already, ready to go. So that's used to be a huge challenge, but having partnered with ICI, we're finding that that's sort of helping students out. And I think once they get here, you started that question with depression and loneliness. And of course, that can be a significant issue. But that's why we created a NISAU, so that you don't feel alone and you don't feel depressed. And there's institutional support available. Of course, depression is a significant mental health issue. And like any other health issue, it needs medical intervention. So there's help available here institutionally from the National Health Service, the NHS. There's help available here from institutions like the Samaritans, which help out with mental health related issues free of cost. And there's peer-to-peer networks like ours, where you can come, join us, hang out with us, be a part of our team, attend our events. We have very, very frequent events happening somewhere or the other. But also, there's a lot of, and I'm not particularly a religious person per se, or particularly cultural in that sense, but there's a lot of happening here. Yeah, I mean, there's dandiya or garba, bhangra. There's mandirs, there's gurdwaras, there's churches, there's mosques. You literally have in India in a mini version in the UK, no matter where you are. So, which is also one of the advantages of being here, is it's so multicultural. So really, there's both institutional channels available for support. There's NISAU available at any time of the day whenever you need. And my strong advice is to get involved in things that your university is doing. Every university has a students' union. Like when I was at LSE, we had even got a student society for things like chess, and we had student societies for things like the Vietnamese Rice Society or something like that. I mean, as obscure as that, but there's so much going on no matter what British campus, what university you're at. And there is so much going on outside of that. It is just up to you to look.
True. So the students should start definitely with the due diligence and research process. That's really important, because that's the start of the whole journey. And then there are multiple factors, and then the SAU is there to help. University Living is there to help for many other factors, also with accommodation and all that. And you just mentioned, they send the card at your home in India only, so that so this is the intervention of internet, and this is the change that I was talking about, what has changed during this particular year of time. And thanks to you guys, that you have also made a lot of easier for the students on this ground. Now I'll come to the other question. You mentioned that NISAU help and support students in many multiple manners. Is there any kind of career support also available at NISAU?
Yeah, it's obviously our Indian students are driven significantly by careers, and as they should be, as I believe they should be. So, career support is something we are actively looking at. I mean, during COVID, one of the things we started was to provide free sessions and free training on things like how to manage your time, how to prioritize, how to do personal branding, how to manage LinkedIn, how to put yourself out there in front of employers. So things like that we did, very, very successful, great take up of training like that, to enhance a student's employability, essentially. So that's one aspect of career support we've been providing. Another aspect is we've launched something called the NISAU Career Alerts, which is essentially whenever we get approached by employers who have vacancies, we push out that through our networks. And I know that students then land up internships or placements or apprenticeships or jobs through that's happening as well. So and we're working on something exciting which hopefully will further scale up all those efforts that we've got. But certainly with both, whether it's in terms of sharing job alerts that into our networks for student benefit, or whether it's providing training to enhance your employability. Those are both things that we do to help people with their careers. And also from a policy making stance, even last month I was speaking at a sort of industry forum on exactly this topic, on employability. So making sure that universities, their career services, their leadership, and the entire higher education sector, those who make the policies, are listening to us from a career service point of view, is a very strong pillar of what we do. And I concluded in one of those sessions, I said something on the lines of, so far employability has been centered around education. It needs to be the other way around. Education needs to be centered around employability. And so that's something we strongly feel and are pushing out there.
That's the basic that has to get, we have to get right from the basic. So, of course. Now, I want to also understand how one can volunteer at NISAU and what kind of impact does this make in their career goals?
Yeah, probably my favorite question. Come join the team. Like I said, everybody at NISAU is a volunteer. So it's an entirely volunteer driven effort, which is what, does make us very unique. And how you can join our volunteer team is really, just send us an email with your CV or your LinkedIn profile to team at nisu.org.uk. So team@nisu.org.uk. Send us that email. Just say, tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, and what kind of things you want that you can contribute to. We have a number of teams within NISAU. We have a research team, an events team, a content team, sponsorships and strategic relationships, and so on. At Scotland team, we have a specific Scotland team because Scotland is such a big area with so many Indian students. So there's a legal team as well. So there's a number of areas that you can get involved with within NISAU. And we operate on a very simple basis, which is that when you join us, you contribute to a bit of everything, but depending on two factors: A, your strength, and B, the skill you want to learn, as well as the exposure you want to gain for the kind of job you want. We take those two factors into account and curate a role for you. So we don't take anybody in the team. We're actually very, very selective about who we take. At any point in time, we'll have between 30 to 60 people on the team, plus hundreds of volunteers who do come around to help with events. But generally, the core team would be between 30 to 50 people at any point. Those are heavy because we invest a lot in our people, and it is essentially a family to us. My friends, my entire friend circle, so probably 80% of that is my NISAU volunteer team, or a significant chunk of that. So we invest a lot in our people, and I think we're very unique in creating and curating that specific role for you based on what you're good at, what you're not so good at, and also what you want to learn and what career you want to build ultimately. So bringing those factors together, we curate something for you. And we make sure that when, a big event is happening or something major is happening, that everyone gets involved. So you gain a breadth of experience. What this does is it breaks a catch-22 that students face, which is when they apply for jobs, the sort of application will ask you, what experience do you have? And you're like, I've just graduated. How on earth do I have experience? Yeah, it makes no sense. But guess what? That's what we're faced with. But if you have this voluntary experience, and in the UK, voluntary experience is really, really, considered very important for students, by employers, by stakeholders. When they see that you have such good experience in the UK, and of course we provide reference letters and whatnot as required, And it's not just a tick box exercise. You're actually able to share your learning and your experiences with interviewers, with your potential employees, and that just sets you apart. Like, if you're able to say, for example, that I work in the events team of NISAU and I led XYZ event where I hosted, as we did a couple of years ago, Dr. Raghuram Rajan, and I curated that entire discussion at King's College London, and we did XYZ impact. Who is an employer going to choose? You or somebody with zero experience who's been partying all his life? It's just as simple as that. So we help you break that catch 22 as well by giving you real world, real British experience, which is fun at the same time, to be able to then go and ace those interviews. And so you can just email us with who you are, what you're doing, your LinkedIn profile or your CV, and we'll curate something for you off the back of that. But like I said, we do not take just anybody who joins. We're very volunteering is a noble exercise, and that nobility must come through, and that passion must come through when we interview you.
Right. So community feeling must be there, and the zeal and the right intention, and of course, the requirements also need to meet. We'll definitely share these email address that Sanam shared in the description box, so you guys can go and check that out. So now we're actually done with the session. We have already parted a lot of wisdom words, but still, is there any like key wisdom, key or any hack you want to share with our students?
Yeah, my dad tells me that I speak too much. So I'm probably gonna not speak too much because I can go on forever. But the one final thing I would just say is that there is no need to feel any sort of pressure, no matter what country you go to, whether it's the UK or elsewhere in the world, or whether you're staying in India for that matter. One thing I really want to emphasize is there is no need for you to feel under any sort of pressure to be a certain way, or to act a certain way, or to sound a certain way. There is no reason you need to put on a fake accent to integrate with your community. If you're going to be in Australia and within 6 weeks you've developed some sort of an Australian accent, we all know what that's going to sound like. It's not going to sound great. Same thing goes for a British accent or a Canadian accent. There's 1.3 to 6 unofficial to official billion Indians in the world, and we speak a certain kind of English. Yeah, so let the world hear what you're speaking. Don't worry about the accent or the pronunciations, worry about the content. So the one thing, because I know people take a lot of stress about this, there is no reason to do that. And I absolutely just be yourself and be authentic. And employers and universities and anybody really you deal with anything worth their money, people are sharp. People can see through fakeness. People can see through lies, and people can see through when you're trying to be something that you're not. But you are special in whoever you are. You have a brand. You need to identify your personal brand. You need to be able to articulate your personal brand, and you need to be your authentic self. Those are not just fancy buzzwords that fly around in philosophical books. Those are genuine things that you need to read, understand, and implement. So be yourself, and no matter where you choose to go, and I hope I do see you in the UK soon, but no matter where you go, remember that you are a representative. You are a brand in yourself. You're your own person, your authentic self, but you're also representing India wherever you go. So remember that in your conduct and in all that you do.
It's great, great. Thank you so much, Sanam. And as Sanam mentioned, be yourself. Don't be conscious. If you're going to be yourself, it's going to help you in all walk of life. It's not just on one particular topic. Thank you so much again, Sanam. It's always nice to get help, guys. And I hope that we were able to help you with this particular session. And NISAU is always there. University Living is always there. We'll mention all the important links and email addresses in the description box. On this note, we'll be closing our session. Again, thank you so much, Sanam, for joining us today and giving us such wonderful insight about NISAU and other things in UK. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We hope that the session was insightful for you, and looking forward to see you guys next Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you.